sometimes they are well-trained singers, and then sometimes who study theology, but they develop the music skills and have a theological background, but not everybody, but a lot of people don't have a theological background, but still, yeah. And if you go to youth service and then there is no hymn, they use their own band and maybe EM service, English service, we call it, they have their own band and a little bit different style, right? Children's service and they have their own styles. But according to the textbook, and he kind of explained the 5 styles of worship. It's the liturgical worship and traditional worship and blended worship and contemporary worship and emerging worship. I don't know whether you guys follow these vocabularies, but still we can divide. So we can talk about later, but think about what kind of worship style your church is kind of employing and how you guys are doing. And before we jump into worship style and think about people have a kind of misconception of the worship styles, and there's people say style is content. It means that style is different from the content. Style is a style, right? But style is not what we do, but think about what is your style. But content is different, right? Maybe through the style you can express what the content, but style is not same as what content. Maybe if you use traditional worship and hymns, and they have their own worship, and then they express their different way, different music styles, right? In style, right? Music, and then if you go to contemporary music and they have a different way to express their heart to God, and so we gotta know that style is not content, right? But people kind of misunderstand the style is content. So style is the way that we deal with the content, not the content itself, right? We need to know that another misconception is the style is a structure. How can you structure? And look at the traditional worship and someone wearing the gown and coming and inviting people and prayer and inviting people to worship, and then chorus background, right? And opening and give kind of a hymn, and then someone is coming out and prayer like this, opening, that is a gathering part. So if you, that's a kind of how they structure the whole things. And if you go to contemporary worship and worship leader is coming out and greeting and maybe short prayer and then start with that. Sometimes no, just start with the sing like this, and then after that and also pray. So pastors coming out naturally and preach the word of God. Nowadays there's some churches have opening time, but a lot of churches don't have opening time. And when they coming in, there's open boxes there, and then nowadays they use a credit card and other things. And already put it in. If you bring the check and other cash, and then just while they sing, and then just give to God. That's it. And so structure is nothing more than giving local flow to our conversation with God. Style is the language with which we converse, right? It's just nothing more than giving local flow. How you flow, how you proceed the whole order, right? And style has only to do with music. There's another misconception. And really, no, it's a lot of, just think about and also young, maybe we cannot generalize that young people like a contemporary music. But if you go to Rhythm Church in New York, yeah, maybe months ago, and then the pastor, Tim Keller, passed away, and then it's really reformed style, and music is really different from the traditional church and contemporary, but as an audience, as a congregation, is really young people, like, and 20s and 30s. I was really surprised. Yeah, I was really surprised, right? And if you, that's why a lot of people talk about this, music, and we don't like music, and music is good, and then people think about that one. And that's a wrong concept, and also the style encompasses many aspects of worship, including the content, right? It's not only music. Think about the baptism. How often the churches can be doing have a ceremony, and then depends on maybe twice a month, twice a year, once a month, like the special occasion. But what kind of one? If you go to Presbyterian and they sprinkle water, but if you go to Baptist church and other evangelical church, they try to submerge, and then they have kind of made a pool, and then you can submerge, and then if you go to Baptist church, and behind the rest of the podium they have a baptism place there, right? It's different though. So style is not only music. And then another misconception is that style has the potential to bring people together. Really? Maybe music, if you say that this music style is really nice and then people come, but some, not all the time. So even though some contemporary music I don't like music. And I'm going here and there, and then I'm visiting my daughters, and then we go to other churches, and church can be music is different. The worship style is different. Depends on the church, what is emphasized, what they emphasize, and the song is really different, right? It's really different. But what draws people together is being a community with other Christians about the gift of God's grace. It's not a style. Maybe if you, because of the music style and the other style, get together, and then what's the core of the community? That's why. And style impacts the church growth positively. Probably, but there's some misconceptions. You can see a lot of churches out there, and contemporary churches and second generation churches, but they're not growing. Why? I don't know how many churches are growing up to mega church. Remember that the spirit of the service is more than important. It's the style or the types of music used, right? Maybe try to make our own styles, and then maybe out of Yeah, it's away from the nature of the church and essence of the church. Maybe you can make the church really event oriented and really like a style oriented, and then because of a short amount of time people are getting together, and then wow, it's gone. Later on, something's happened. Look at around the big churches in Orange County, and do you know how many people are getting together, and the pastors passed away, and a lot of things happening, and they sold the church to other denominations. Church is gone now. How many people donated the church to build the church, do something? It's not a style. Remember that churches were based on the gospel, based on the gospel. So when you think about the worship is not style, right? Worship is not style. And why is the worship style then? What is the worship style? Here is some understanding of worship style, and the way a certain faith community expresses the content of its worship liturgy as a result of its given context, right? The whole worship process and also that the liturgy. Maybe the liturgy might be different from other churches. They have their own things, right? That is a worship style. Makes sense, right? Denomination is a different worship style. Contemporary nowadays, and then they use a lot of different, depends on the denominations, or sometimes they don't bound with the denomination like the free churches, right? And here is, we can, this is a basic definition, and we can divide three sections of a certain faith community, and the content of the worship, and as a result of a given context. We can divide it and explain. Here is that a certain faith of community refers to the established group of people, whether small or large, who constitute a regular worshiping community. Most often there are local congregations. So I live in Cerritos, but I go to Latino church at 12 o'clock, and then there's a local congregation who's from Latin America and Ecuador and Mexico, and they are Spanish speaking, but their culture is different, right? And other Sunday, I go to Caucasian church in Cyprus. There's local people, mostly white Caucasian people dominate, about more than 80%. And if I once in a while, and maybe I try to connect with the church and Vietnamese immigrant church, and there's a unique church. And there is a unique church, and they have pastor can speak English, and he's pretty old, and then they will come praise time together, and first generation, second generation together, and some songs English, some songs and Vietnamese, and then around 40 minutes, and there was a English congregation still left in for the worship, and then also the Vietnamese congregation left, and they have a small Bible group study, and then after 1 hour, and they switch it. After that, and they have a fellowship, eating lunch together like that. And that is a different, but most people are the Vietnamese, and then like I'm a visitor, and I can see one like other ethnic people I saw is he's a Caucasian, and then he married to Vietnamese woman. That's why he attending the church, and that's a different though, right? And that is a certain-based community though, whether Vietnamese and Koreans and Caucasian, white people, and then maybe nowadays some multicultural, maybe, but a little bit different, right? And really, there's a local congregation, whether based on the ethnic or, the content of worship is refers those things that, may, that the local church includes as a normative for worship, normative for worship, and I think a lot of misspellings, and then the content is to think about something local church kind of using, right, for worship as a normative. Maybe there's a band, and then there is the Vietnamese church is kind of unique, and they have a prayer time together, and they greet, and sometimes they pray time together, and kind of 3, 4 people get together and sharing the prayer with us, and they pray together each other. There's a unique one. They have their own content is there, and praise is there. Sometimes there's testimonies there, like this, right? Yeah, that's my observations, right? And for worship, and then as a result of each given text was context means that one's worship style flows from the context rather than the determined context, right? And just think about the style is not determined well, and context is there, and after that, the result is there. That is worship style. And there's 3 components in definitions, and then maybe it's try to break down the 3 components, and then to help you remember what is a worship style like. Here is worship style. Already told you, and then let's kind of a brief what is worship style, and then how you can understand and then use it. Liturgical worship style is like really vertical direction to God. It's not for others. Just think about, and then really a lot of sacrament, and then they usually focus on God, not the congregations, and then really God-centered, and then it's like usually they use a classic prayer, and then they use prayer books and the hymns and anthems. So usually like Catholic churches, and then they use a weekly or frequently Eucharist, and then maybe communion and another word, and then that is a liturgical, like if it liturgical church means that usually think about the Catholic Church or Orthodox Church, and prominent use of symbols and use of parament, and the intentional placement of furniture and symbolic architecture. They use that one, and background you can see that one, and really focus on the liturgy. And so each really congregation is participating more than the other churches, and they do something, right? Just think about, and usually when when you go to contemporary church, worship style, we're going to talk about it. You're just singing and but you don't do much pray. You don't do prayer together and not like that, right? And the liturgies view the holistic as prayer, and that is a basic understanding of the liturgical styles, and then so liturgy, that is praying to God whole process, and what is a good and what is a kind of a considerate, considerate. And prose is the highly spiritually based. It's like really mystical, try to get the mystical stuff, and then a strong sense of reverence, and it's really objective, and sense of world community, world community, and or like look at this, and worship content order strongly resemble other church worship in that denominations. So it means that they share the worldview in worship together, right? And so highly participate, and they congregation do a lot of stuff together and follow, and then not just sitting on the chair. And that is a pros. And what about cons? May neglect the horizontal dimension of worship. We always focus on the God, right? God-centered. So may provide less flexibility for the contemporary expression, because they have the set kind of liturgy is there, and the rite is there, and then they follow, right? That is a kind of cons. And I think we lost a lot of liturgy. I think not many people go to Eastern churches and Orthodox churches, and then Catholic churches still, maybe Lutheran a little bit. But if you come to Protestant, other mainline churches and then other churches, it's hard to see. Not open. Traditional style worship is based on the history, and so really here is committed to go for the order, like we already talked about gatherings, and then word, and then respond, and then sending, right? Basically, really committed, and then there's a little bit order is there, and then really hymn-based. Not, it's different from the Orthodox church, but maybe they set up the from the after the Reformation, and then set up and their own worship styles, and then it's a really choir, it's a bass, and then there is in the beginning to end, and then in the middle of right before the sermon, and there's a choir, let's say, and there is age level choirs, and then instrumental ensembles there, and maybe a lot of choirs. If you go to big churches, and different choirs there, right? And why I was in Korea, and I was serving as a teacher for high schoolers, and then usually teachers had kind of, I don't know, we are not the people who really trained for the choir, but still we serve the choir members, because the worship usually many people are really busy, and they have something in the morning, or the teachers, and then like that, and then I became a member of choir, service is like 8 o'clock, and if you want to practice the choir, so like go to 6:30 at church, and go to 6:30 by at church, go to church by 6:30 in the morning, and then it's really dark. And there is, use the standard choral literatures, and then, right, it's really, and use them, and primary instrument would provide organ and pianos. That's my generations. And then, lectionary bass and often not always, they use there's a kind of a book is there that you can read it together, and not all the time, but there is. And then use of standard prayer types, and collecting and prayer of confession and the Lord's Prayer, and then they have to collecting the opening prayer. That's a traditional worship style. Maybe if you wanna see, and then just go to Presbyterian church. It's a traditional Presbyterian church, and then my daughter, while she was in college, and her friend's dad is a pastor in Presbyterian church, and then so once she visited her home, and then went to the church together, and she said there's organ and choirs there, and they use the hymn book, but they don't even clap their hands. They don't even clap hands. She said it, her experience. That's traditional. And then prose is used to rich heritage content from the 7th century, 8th century, like that. It's not middle time. And then hymns and prayers are treasure of good theology, right? Always there's a lot. Truly means a story, and then generally use more objective, right? And tend toward intergenerational, but still a lot of generations coming out. Their context is different, and they are living the traditional church, and there's cause, and then tends to ignore the fresh creativity of the present ages, right? Change, like they use vocal teams, they use a band, like, right? And may tend toward performance worship because of the high involvement choirs and special music. Sometimes, and the instrument plays, and sometimes the soloists coming out singing, and the choirs playing. That's one of the something's happening in the choirs. Sometimes we emphasize worship as a program versus worship is a prayer, because each really just the liturgical worship is like whole worship process, the holistic prayer. They said about this one is like part of programs, seems like, right? And different. Here's another contemporary style, like usually young generations and have a church, and then they go own style. It's really music driven, and then they use a nice sound system, and good singers, and instrument players, and then it's really music driven, right? And you can see a lot of bands from the big churches, and then they're really good. And praise is a chorus based. Chorus based, and a lot of refrain use and repeat. There's standards there, but still chorus based is very short and repeat, right? and use the modern instrument like electric guitars and drums and keyboard instead of opening piano, right? And usually contemporary style is led by a praise team, and there's a praise team and instrument players there and also singers there. It depends on the church, and really focus on the immanence of God, right? You wanna kind of experience God's presence right there, and tends toward the subjective. It's not objective, and just think of a traditional church based on what they believe, and then hymns is really their doctrinal confession, and then right, and from the Bible, and then that one is really your personal experience, right? Not personal is a kind of really very subjective experience, and tends toward, right, and then uses current and contemporary arrangement, not the traditional, and there is a old order worship, and they have their own, and really casual in tones and appearance, right? So when you go to church and you really, when I go to my church in Cyprus, as a neighbor's church in Cyprus, and then still, even though I don't go every Sunday, but I claim that that is my home church, and then I don't wear the slacks, and just try to wear the jeans and sneakers, and then like any long and short t-shirt or shirt, right? But when I go to my Korean churches, and still a lot of people wearing the jeans and shirts, but still not many older people like my old and then wearing the jeans, and then especially when I go to Hispanic churches, Latino church, and if I go to Indonesian churches and Vietnamese church, and I gotta wear my decent, because the culture is different, but it's not an American church, right? There's a contemporary styles, and then one of the good things fosters intimacy with God, and okay, God is here, try to experience, and then promote very joyful worship. Music is really good, and right, people like music, and then really seeker friendly, who try to find the church, and then it's really you don't have to know the community, and then just experience kind of church and what it's like, and see here and there, like it's really good for them, and then kind of connect with the culture in use of technology. So they use a lot of high technologies, computers, right? Videos, clips, and other things, right? And but cons is a lot like the lean towards the subjective worship. It's not based on what they believe, and right? That is not all the time. That is one of the cons, and too much about what the worshiper does, too little about what God has done. Right? Its purpose is a little bit different, and too much about what the worshiper does, and then too little about what God has done. Really interesting, huh? And tends to emphasize individual expression over the corporate expression. They use a lot of I language rather than we language. A little bit different, right? That is a contemporary worship style. What about blended worship style? Blended worship style is like they mix the contemporary worship and the what? And the traditional worship, that's a blended worship style. So they use hymns from the traditional worship style and chorus and from the contemporary worship style. So they use the broad, they use the instrument, organ, piano, guitar, drums, and acoustical instrument. Yeah, they use a lot. And led by praise team or choirs, and they mingled, and sometimes they take turns, and then for the praise music, and then still praise team coming out, and there's a choir there, right, for the sermon, and choir kind of they prepare songs and sing the songs, and but blended style is good. Is what's good is many appeals to a wide audience. Think about it's older people can go. It's convenient, right? Because the hymns and a lot of different varieties, and then but it's still hold potential for the intergenerational worship, and then because two worship style is there, and then sometimes I observe a church, and the early morning is like a traditional style, maybe, and they have three worship styles, and then second worship is like only when 9 o'clock worship is like traditional styles, and 11 o'clock is like contemporary worship style. It's different though. They little bit separate, but who wants go to, and they give them choice, and sometimes they mingle together, they're blended. That's why they can do it. What is a concept can divide the worshipers into opposing groups based on the preference within the same service, right? That's why we gotta know that if we wanna do Vietnamese church, it has kind of blended worship style, right? And then seems like a contemporary style, but they kind of try to overcome the cultural and language barriers. And theory is another concept, does not necessarily create a dialogue or communicate. Just there is and provide what people, the congregation like, but it's hard to create. Maybe oil and water, and they cannot mix it, even though they mix it, and they eventually, separate. That's another worship style. So emerging worship style versus emerging worship style. Emerging worship style is a little bit like postmodern generations, and then they really against the modernism, and they don't give them credit to the modern philosophy and cultures, and then they kind of really see the society is really broken and personal, and society is really broken, and then we gotta fix it, but different way. They don't really emphasize, everything, emphasize on logical process to solve the problem. So they don't give them a lot of credit on the human spirit. They are fault. They can make a lot of mistakes. It means that they don't trust 100% on their logics and reasons, and they are really sensory natures, and then really they are really values on the use of the 5 senses, all 5 senses in worship, seeing, touching, and hearing, and things like this, and it's really highly experiential and then really hands-on involvement in worship and yeah, on the spot and people are coming and people participate in worship like this, right? It's a little bit seems like disorganized, but still they prepare in a way. And then communally led rather than the hierarchical worship and see that the traditional, there is a hierarchies and then there is and liturgies are like led by the priest, but pastor, but still seems like and view contemporary worship as early self-referencing, focus on the human need and feeling and desire. It's a little bit against the contemporary worship, and they are really like that, and then they are appreciation for the ancient form of worship interpreted in contemporary way. So they try to live a different way, right? So appreciation of the old forms, and then also the art forms assistant experiencing God, and then they use them the drummers and sometimes in art, and they use different things. And I never been in like emerging church, and as moderate interested in technology, so they view the technology as somehow artificial. It's not genuine. Just think about it. So they really against the basic philosophies against the modernism, but reason and logic, but still they are longing for the original things, but they bring it down into their context, right? Practice in their way, and striving to engage people with the person of Christ, and then little bit and focus of the gospel and worship is realign with God, realignment. So how can I realign God and God is allow it to me? A little bit different way, because even though God is there all the time same, but still, who is initiate worship? Who is closing the worship? A little bit different aspect, right? And I don't know. It's really different, but sometimes maybe like older generation. I'm not the older generation, but still I try to open to other styles, differences, but still, sometimes I told you, right? Chewing gum in worship, I don't like it. I don't like it. And sometimes, I don't know. So fearing God is a little bit different from nowadays. Fearing God, when we think about fearing God, it's kind of we think about the loving God. God's loving all the time. But my context of fearing God is a little bit kind of there's God's always there, and then you gotta prostrate, and then you cannot even see the God's greatness. That's fearing God. It's not emphasized the level, the reverence and honoring, but even we cannot look it up like this. That's fearing God. But nowadays kind of a little different though. Honoring, fearing, and respecting. And here is pro and cons, and what is good, and really participative, and then people improvisationally and then use and coming out, and my pastor sometimes does that. I know they already did, and then maybe they did, and then try to kind of connect with someone who is sitting in the chair and then engage and coming, call him out and then do something, try to explain. But yeah, and allow for many types of artists to express worship, art, and a different way. That is good. And then appreciate many worship forms, even though it's Asian worship forms, right? And they use five senses, are highly sensory and engage with lot of different levels, many levels, right? And connect with the current worldview, based on the postmodernism, and I think that is a spelling wrong. Engagement comes at the level of and I use a Grammarly usually, but sometimes they don't catch it. Always they fix it, but my spelling is wrong, and then there's a red line is coming, and then I need to fix it. But that's why I always turn it on, because English is my second language, and then I try to make errors less and less, and try to write the sentence in the native ways, and then I used my paper, right? And so pretty expensive, but still doesn't catch it. Maybe I write and copy and paste. I don't know which one is the problem, but And what is the cons? And cons is like negotiable roles of the Word of God. Someone teaching and may not be necessary. As the whole community speaks the Word of God, the word from God. And so a little bit different, and try to use the art and other stuff, and then just think about, and sometimes the word of God is ignored and then replaced by other things. And I don't know whether maybe once the word of God is a special revelation by God, and who can know about God, who can learn about right? But still, through the word, and there's a specific ways there. But if you express art, what if a person who has not artistic, if someone is like, they already use the five senses, and what about default of five senses, right? And there is a lot of questions, but still, they one of the problems are negotiable. And interpretation of the Word of God by the community, not necessarily by someone called to preach and trained in hermeneutics. That's really dangerous. Out of a context, like historical and cultural and literary, and then it's really dangerous, though, right? Just think about what is the postmodernism. It's a pluralistic and relativistic, right? And tendency toward being individualistic. Think about worship. Worship is a corporate, it's a congregation and community. It tends to be individualistic, and then a little bit different from the worship and we are talking about. And extremely high maintenance requires a lot of planning, funding, creativity, because think about they use a different way they express God, right? they willing to use art form and then dramas and then think about. And this is views as the latest fad. It's not trend. Trend is a certain period is existed and gone. Fad means it's really coming quickly, it's gone quickly, right? That is their worship style. And there's a 5 worship styles, and then maybe there's depends on the church, but by the structure, by how they worship, and we can kind of categorize in one of these. Not exactly the same, even though not exactly, but we can categorize. And there's a worship style. So we already talked about it. The style is not that important, right? We gotta think about this concept of worship, right? But think about how we worship, right? What is worship like this? And we need to know the essence of worship. And that's why here's the author suggests that, and we need to get the relevant worship. So relevant worship is a time to basically create a corporate opportunities for the Christian community to increase aware of the Christ's living presence in worship, and attention to the God's word, and then ability to express themselves to God, how you respond to God, and willing to be transformed. It's a really important thing, right? In worship, right? By the worship, we need to transform, and then open to the healing ministry of the Spirit, and who is working in the worship, the Spirit, and desire to share the goodness. Worship is not a celebration for the Christians, but if you have really good worship, and then people need have a desire to share the gospel, because both myself and for others, the compassion is automatically transferred to what? The others. That's he said relevant worship. I don't know, just think about your worship and how you guys have worship at your churches and personally. How you think about worship? And another part of the select is building the repertoires, and then repertoires is like how can you start and finish whole things. And usually the worship pastor is that we call worship pastor, and then he there's a preachers as well, pastor, teacher, preachers there, and then he is gonna that's in charge of the preaching part, and then whole worship process is like by worship pastors, and sometimes leaders. And if you don't, your church is small and you cannot afford, and then who are really gifted to leading the songs and leading the worship, and then they're willing to step up and serve, and probably it's a part-time position or full-time, whatever. But nowadays a lot of people who are interested and I want to become a worship pastor, and then they go to seminary school, right, after college and seminary school, and then they learn about the basic, equipped with the basic seminal theologies, and then they coming out and help in the worship. So who could lead the pastoral musician worship? He called the pastoral musician. And who can be a pastoral musician? So pastoral musician is whether graduate from seminary school or not, and then what? A leader who developed the skill with with developed skills and God-given responsibility. God-given, it's have call and passions and responsibility for the selecting and employing music and worship that will serve the actions of the liturgy. Right? Whole things, process, and while reflecting on the theological and contextual and cultural consideration. So, all for the ultimate purpose of the glorifying God. It's a really hard job. It's really hard. Not just, now this music is really popular and then people like it and then I'm gonna use this song. Maybe, but think about alignment with the sermons. Or how can we introduce the people's heart and prepare the word of God here and there is a response and how can send them out? There's a whole process. It's not just a song that I like, the song is really popular. When you choose the kind of a pastoral musician and then we gotta consider here is some, if you are and then pastoral musician and then think about who you are and are you really not qualified and have kind of equipped with these criteria. And then here is that the author suggests that embrace a life, the Christian faith. I think so. Embrace a life, Christian faith, and then it means that willing to take the Christian faith, right? To live, to live. I think so. Our aim is to live. And as a pastoral musician is embraced to live Christian faith and then has a developing the spiritual maturity, of course, because the people follow and they are guiding and people follow. And they are now mature enough and then churches are no problem, right? No problem. And has a sense of a vocational call to worship ministry, vocational call, as a full-time, part-time, like a paid position, and has primary responsibility in worship and music ministry, right? A little bit skilled and equipped with music and worship. Understand the relationship between music and liturgy. How can you hold worship process and liturgy and music? And then what? Understand the music as a servantable text. Music is not primary. The text, the word of God is what? The main, right? And also the accountable to God and to others for excellence, not just doing and really equip and try to do his duty holistically with the sensitivity of logic, purpose of worship and Christian year and other orthodox practices and any other practice and prepare and then align with the ministry, music and worship. I never thought about it, but still, while I'm practicing this lecture, and if I am pastor at church, and if I interview with pastor musician, and then maybe I can look at this criteria. And then we had a lot of issue with the worship pastors. I've been more than 10 years in the church, and then in the beginning, we have different people there, and one of the pastors who got degree and we cannot pay, he got a PhD in worship, and then we cannot pay up to his level, and then he resigned, another one coming out, and so and just going, and then sometime was another pastor is coming out and happening, and another music pastor is coming out, and in the beginning it was good, and then he resigned, and otherwise some interims take over. I'm not happy with that one, and then, but like going and a lot of different things, but I don't know how our pastors can inaugurate it, but we are talking about the one of the music was pastoral musicians really struggling with the leadership at church, and then the leadership let him go, but I was not in the leadership at the time, and after he left, and then I joined the board, and then served one term, and then I don't know what was going on exactly. I just heard a little. So it's really important things. Here is more criteria. Understand the community base and the special nature of the music roles within the community. Know the music and know the community. Select employ music notes, music not for the music's sake, not for music's sake, but for the great purpose, for the worship. And consider the Christian community and its need both proclaim the truth and respond to the truth through the music. And just think about and how should know music very well, should know theology very well, right? And it's not primarily interested in music that is passively received, but in music that engage with all congregation. How can you contribute? And seek to move the worshipers from the role of the audience to the role of the active participant, right? And I don't know, but it depends on the church. And then interesting is that not many people is coming and singing while we are worshiping. It's praise teams leading, but not many people are singing in my church. Maybe they sing softly, but if we go to like a traditional churches and everybody open the hymn books and sing loud, right? Yeah, it's really, really different. Sometimes I feel like we have a lot of audience in this worship. And my kids, when they were in junior high school and high school, and I didn't do the church ministry, and that's why we go to other church, and then they tried to do the youth group in the current church, and the culture is too different. They usually grew up with the Korean churches, and then they go to American church youth group, and then it's not like a Korean church youth group, and they didn't go, and then they stayed with us. And every Sunday we had worship together, and my pastor used the PowerPoint and then clips, and then it was not the board for my kids, and then and once I wanna listen. Sometimes when they grew up, and then I could see my older daughter. She's already kind of expressive, and sometimes she raises her hands and clapping, and not high school period. and still, but my younger one is not that, and she is very introvert, but I really pay attention whether they sing or not. But they sing really soft voice. It's really important, and interested in breadth of songs, not stylistically, but in tones. There's a lot of different music styles, and then different songs out there, and then not just pursuing the styles, but think about the tones and theologies, and then understand that the gospel invites variety, emotion, and from the gladness to sorrow, from that which comfort to the convicted. Just think about what is working through the praise, right? Music, that's a really important thing though, right? And theologically discriminating and think about this song is a really good melody and people like about theology, it comes from theology, it's a lot of doubting. It's a lot of doubting. And once I read an article from the Bethany Church and John Piper's church, and then they said that one of the praise team said, this is not right. This is not a theology that we learn from the past. But do we have to sing this song? Melodies is kind of some verses song is lyrics is not aligned with the theology, and then why we still have to sing with this one? Congregation, but still questionable. Right? How can you do that in this situation? There's helping the worshiping community to sing whole story of God, helping whole congregation, not certain people. And from creation to eschaton is at the end, right? When Jesus Christ coming back. So as a worship, pastoral musician, and then they need to know they need to know to evaluate the songs. So how can people evaluate the song? Here is some thought. Not every song is written the word to be sung, right? That's true. Sometimes melody is good, but sometimes really is not good. All the various of congregational songs are not subject to the equal scrutiny. Scrutiny, right? So just think about there's a lot of songs there, and then they need to be considered, right? And but a person responsible for the song selection are accountable to God for what they ask the community to sing. That's a really important thing. Who is responsible? Leader, worship leader, right? So when you evaluate the worship songs and think about the importance of song selection and level of the assessment, right? And why is so important to select the right songs for the worship? Why? I don't know whether you agree with this statement. Songs affect what people think because of the repetition, right? I believe it. So sometimes when you want to propagate something and they make a song and let them memorize and let them sing and automatically, like in North Korea, and then they use a lot. Then it's easy to memorize. So when music is added to the text, then the emotion element is introduced to what? Cause a great attachment to the message of the song. That's true. It impacts more without that. Right? And songs shaping the congregational theology by the text they select. Sometimes, I already told you in Bethany Church praise teams, and to have to read the select a song, and we have to sing together. If you don't have theology, and then you cannot discern which is right, which is what we believe in, because it depends on the types of the governance, and then you have different denominations, and then but still we gotta know that it's even though among the Christians, and then there's a liberal theology still, there is a kind of conservative and sounding theologies there. And depends on what kind of theology you have and reflect on your life, on your belief, right? Based on your belief. So theory is a level of assessment. How can we assess when you see that the song's music has a theological strength, you're gonna see that, whether they have or not. And then here is theological strength, and then it's the verse of, and the song is the verse of text, the readings, whole text really is a orderly truth. It's the text truth for the theological traditions. Think about it. It's aligned with the theological tradition, and then the text represent the biblical idea of a Christian experience. And the text contains the obvious scriptural allusions, and then the text represent the fair picture of the biblical teaching. So here is another one, is the text consistently use the biblical names or titles for God. Nowadays, contemporary music is they don't use God and Jesus, anything. Always they say you. They say purposefully use the kind of erasing God and triune God's name because for the secrets. And when they sing the song and then think about who is you, right? Like that. He, like that. But it's like a open and really theologically sound and conservative Christian, and you're gonna think about the song. It's not a special context. And does the text include a reference of the fullness of God's divine nature? Yeah, the song that was the song "This Is Our God," and then talk about Jesus Christ. That's another create other stuff, right? And those the text represent the fully developed theological idea, or does it only provide a soft bite for the theological ideas? So you gotta discern and you gotta evaluate and select the songs, and then here is a reading strength, and then the text constructed well, lyrically is very well. That's a rich music sense, right? And the text is constructed well, and the song text used to complete the sentence. Sometimes there's a theological aspect and reading aspect. Sometimes it's too poetical and poetic, and sometimes it's not completely. It's hard to deal with the right messaging. And the text employed a poetic device effectively, and will the poetry connect with the congregation imaginations, and then relate to our faith and God, and then does the text use an understandable word and not jargons, and not really the urban slangs like that, and then when I think about, and is there a logical flow of thought, and then lyrics are clear or vague, and then was a text inspire and edify, and the word fit the music. That's the assessment of the lyrical strengths, lyric part. What about musical strengths? Are the musical praise well constructed? What about melody line? it's easy to memorize. And what about the melody accessible to the average singers? Like beat and other techniques, syncopations and other things, right? I'm really hard, yeah, because my generation doesn't have much syncopations, but nowadays it's a lot, right? Yeah, still, yeah, I can follow it, but still, yeah, if there's no music sheet, and then it's hard. But I grew up with the music sheet, right? Music sheet, and then you can see the whole and the notes, and it's easy to follow. But if you don't, and then just remember and count the beat and following, and it's not easy for me. It's a true interesting enough to sustain the participation of the singers. And thus, yeah, tune beat the text. That's a musical. And that's, yeah, basic, and basic, what is the assessment, especially theological aspect and reading aspect and the musical aspect. That's why we need some theological training and musical training. If they don't, maybe someone select something, let's do it, and sometimes it's not relevant to the sermon, and it's less effective, right? That's why the pastoral musicians talk to preachers, and then he knows what's the point of the preaching, and then he knows all the basic outlines, and then he knows the text, right? And put together and come preparing from the beginning to end with that one. So we already talked about the gathering and how we can do it, and what about word, move to word, and how can we? That word is not the musician's part and the preacher's part, right? And response part and then ending part work together. And another thing is when you evaluate, assess the music, and then we gotta know the cultural context. Cultural context is really important, and then the text speak to the experience of our congregation. Think about it. Even though I'm a Korean American, I'm from Korea at age 30, right? And think about, even though the kids coming to America is like at age 10, 20, 15 is totally different, right? It's totally different. That's why we got to consider the context, right? Is a song our congregation can sing on? Depends on, it's not too hard. Sometimes the lyric is really nice, but as a musical aspect is hard and it's not easy. Then understand the congregations. Does it represent to the perspective of my worshiping community? It really relates to our community. Can my people relate to the imagery and metaphors and ideas and they are employed, right? Yeah, that is a cultural aspect, and then it's inclusive to all groups within my congregation, and then that's a cultural aspect. So when you assess the build of the repertoire, and then think about theological aspect, lyric aspect, and musical aspect, and cultural aspect. So another thing is that we musicians, as leaders, should know the role of the congregation song. And what is the word is what? And then revelation. Right? Because the revelation and then what? The response is what? People respond, right? That's a basic relationship and basic component in worship, and then we gotta remember this what. And the role of song is the same play, the same. Listen to God and respond to God. So remember the congregation songs and proclaim the word of God, who God is, what He has done, and another part is kind of exhort each other, one another, and then another part is called the actions. Okay, just to relate to your standing, and if you have this word, then how can we live? Right? How can we live? How shall we live with this word? And this is a really important thing though nowadays, and we have a lot of knowledge, but we are not accountable for our lives. Always making excuse of our sinful natures, our weakness. But just think about formation of process in worship. If you respond to God in worship honestly and with all our heart, and then should be, even though it's slow, there should be kind of a formation process. Yeah, there is kind of basic decision of musical principles, and what is the basic principles, musical decisions. So music, the musical worship serves a purpose beyond itself. Okay, we gotta know. The musical worship is always servant of the text. So how can you decide? And even though you think about music, still, what is a priority in worship? Music in worship should not focus on the performance. That's true, right? It's not performance, it's worship to God. Music provides means for both revelation and response, right? To the music, lyrics, and sometimes there's a tones and helps to respond very well. And music serves a full range of functions: prayer, creed, praise, testimony, proclamation. Just remember that one. So assess and selection is really important. Music is primarily the corporate activity. It's not all about worship, right? The music is worship should reflect the character of God. So we need to know what is the purpose of music, right? So here is how we place and song in the worship. It's really important to follow the logic, and then here is, and then when you make orders, and then first of all think about what is the object of this song, and exhort, the teaching, confess, adore, pray, and then you're gonna know that what is the object of this song. And there's, if you see the book, and then there's how can you title, and you can kind of organize, and another sheet is there. Maybe I can show you next time, and then take a picture, and then how can you design, prepare the whole process. And what is the primary message of the song? And then based on the text alone, what is it trying to express? And what voice is speaking? Individual worshipers, God, and gather body, and look at the song first. What kind of song is like that? Right? That's a question too. And then you could say that where does the song best fit into the conversation with God? Which part? Gathering part, word part, and the respond part, and the sending part. You gotta know that. You gotta choose song and which part is goes, and then it seems a reveal or respond. Which one is a reveal is related to the what, and then goes to the Bible, the word, and respond, and then it's a proclamation or the express. Proclamation is goes to the gathering part, right? Express is like maybe respond part. Does it start with the service or at the end of the service? At the end of the service is like the sending part, right? And call to actions. And then if you consider song and then think about what's the elemental worship, and then what? The last part is the collection of songs used in this service provide all a well-rounded worship experience. Okay, how impact? Think about how the songs impact on the congregations and worship, and is there a balance between the objective and subjective songs? There's a balance. Objective songs are like the hymns, right? And then think about related to God's characters, what has done, like about saving acts like that. Is there any boundary reference of God? Check it. And cooperative language predominate because it is cooperative worship, it's not individual worship. And then does the collection of songs used in the service express a wide range experience or emotion of the Christian life? Just think about. And that's kind of right before, and you gotta check it, and then you can use it. Here is another part is the musical structure, and then there's a sequential and a cyclic structure is there, and then you're gonna, I don't know that much music, but still I like music, but I didn't know that one. Sequential structure is ask a singer to think sequentially, process information deductively, and mean that here is God is there's God is there, God is loving, and a lot of things well. Because and God is love. That's a deduct. It's a proposition is coming out and trying to explain. That's deductions, right? And general is a specific goal, and you try to prove that's a deduction, and usually depends on the written word and sequence, and it carries weight on the text, teach, inform the state, the doctrine of the church. There's a sequential musical structure, and then what the cyclic structure is about. They're a little bit different. The cyclic structure is about process information. There's a general idea, specific ideas is here, and then you gotta deduction is the same, and then you can go to general one. There's a cyclic kind of individual ideas there, and you put together all the way bottom, and then there's a conclusion is one of your ideas. Depends on themes, and then there's a variation, a lot of repetitions, and there, and then usually cyclic structure is a kind of used you meditate and contemplation. So this is more toward the response, and this one is toward the word in worship. Was for the worship, right? There is kind of operation musical structure is there, and then I don't know. Maybe you can consider this one, and then I just kind of have this one, and when you think about how you kind of make your building a repertoire, and then you can constantly be interested, and then that is a kind of we had kind of when you build up the repertoire and you gotta assess the songs, right? And theological aspect and lyric aspect and then musical aspect and then what is the cultural aspect related to your congregation, and then what is the understanding of the song was the songs of the congregational songs, right? Here it is, and then roles of congregation songs and function of congregation songs, what it's about, and then how can make basic decision on the musical principles. That's a basic some ideas about. So you all put together and then think about whole pictures of worship in your head, and then how you choose a song, how you play the song in the beginning with a lot, and then you put together, right? And kind of it's a lot of work, I think, but maybe because they like music and want to contribute in worship, and maybe that it's not my job. But still, I hope that if you like music and try to read more. All right, so I think it's too long, and I wanna finish here, and we have 2 more classes.